Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm RJ Kerr, and welcome back to Let's Write an Adventure, our ongoing live stream where we are creating a campaign in real time, going through the entire process so you can see all of the decisions and steps that go into the actual action of creating an adventure from start to finish and fleshing that out into an entire campaign for your D&D setting. While we are focusing primarily on Dungeons and Dragons when I write this kind of stuff out, just because that's my personal favorite TTRPG. It These sorts of steps work no matter what TTRPG you're playing in, because we're not really working with rule sets. We're more working with storytelling and how we go about writing those stories in a way that gives our players agency and lets them have a world that they can interact with and make dynamic choices in. So, just as a little recap for what we've done over the last few sessions, we are building out right now our own domain of dread, one that has yet to be fully named. Um, but in this is a domain of dread in which the players show up seeking, actually, I guess for all their own personal reasons, but a big one of those would be for them, seeking fame and treasure and adventure, the sorts of things that they probably dreamt of when they became adventurers, that kind of deal, only to find that they are now stuck in this world um, that is set around a large inland sea, sort of in the ruins of a previous prosperous civilization and ruled over by an elemental villain that we've named Evander, meaning that the players need to escape, or the characters need to escape. This is escape for the players, hopefully, meaning it's a fun escape. But the characters need to have escape, have a dire escape ahead of them, uh, which is only made the more severe and the more urgent when they are kidnapped and temporarily enthralled as servants of a cult led by an aboleth. Now, we've already previously built out that initial adventure. Um, Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we can kind of use that as our visual aid here as we go through. Um, but we built that out in which our players get kidnapped, and then they now have to escape from the lair of these cultists, this excavation site, and find their way out. And in doing so, they'll realize or learn that there is an artifact hidden somewhere in this domain of dread that would give them the power to escape themselves, and therefore becomes sort of the overall mission of this campaign: find the artifact and escape. So we built out that adventure. Now we were working on building out sort of the starting location, the first town that the characters come into after they enter this domain of dread, the place from which they are kidnapped. And we've been doing a lot of brainstorming on that over the last couple sessions here and really fleshing out that location, a place that we're calling Darkport. Um, and we've been taking our time and really putting in a lot of details into this town to make it feel like it's its own environment, its own dynamic place. And it's a place that we can have the characters come back to over and over again and have lots of options for them to kind of branch out and explore and find new adventures. So today, instead of continuing to flesh out Darkport, because we've got a lot here already, although there's certainly gaps, like an alchemist or an apothecary we talked about, ale houses, different some of the different factions that aren't specifically the Aboleth-led or the Slod-led factions that we've built out previously as part of our first adventure. Um, I think that instead, let's sort of zoom out for a bit here and let's think about that artifact, shall we? Because that's going to be just a huge part of what happens next. And so you'll notice here that we're using, if you're familiar with it, the story circle structure for writing this campaign. And there's a million different sort of story structure designs that you can use to help guide you as you're like working your way through designing a campaign and trying to come up with what pieces and parts you might need. Um, And I'll preface this by saying that if you were writing this for a group of proactive players, meaning players that have their own objectives and want to tell parts of the story themselves and are really involved in, well, no, my character wants to go do this or seek this out or that kind of thing, that while this structure will still probably emerge organically as you play, you then don't necessarily need to do a lot of this ahead of time. You could do this sort of as it comes up, in a session by session sort of basis. Now, the artifice of what we're doing here is that we don't have players set to play this, and so we're going to plan for reactive players, players that want to be caught up in a story and want to sort of have this world thrust upon them and having to deal with the challenges that those entail. And so we're going to spend some time drafting this all out and kind of coming up with areas that are nodes that are more than likely going to occur. And so we're using the story structure, story circle structure for that. And so that means that we're going to come about halfway down. We're going to come to our find. And this is where the part of the adventure where the characters find the artifact and there's a twist. They discover the artifact's use offers them a choice. They have the option to release the inhabitants from this domain of dread and risk the evil within it escaping into the material plane, or they can destroy the domain of dread and everything inside of it, ensuring that the evil never escapes, but also that everybody in it is destroyed as well. Now, this is an important twist to the adventure because it creates a dilemma for the characters to grapple with later. But it's also about the midpoint. And so one of the things that I will do sometimes when I'm writing a full campaign, especially when there are certain things that are more than likely going to happen, things that I want to happen or things that need to happen for the story to evolve and move forward. And there's nothing wrong with having these plot points, things that pretty much need to occur. Every published adventure that you're going to read has plot points like this, and it's not railroading because the characters decide how they get to these places, but no matter what choice they make, something is going to occur up ahead. That's just causality, right? And so predicting what that most likely is going to be is what we're doing when we create plot points like this. And so one of the things that you can do is that if you are kind of at a loss for where you want to go next or what might happen next in an adventure is kind of skip ahead to the next thing that you know should occur. And very often that's the midpoint of your adventure or perhaps even the climax of your adventure. And so what you're doing is you're creating kind of two known points. You're creating a beginning that we know where the characters start, and we know some place where they need to end up. And by fleshing out that place where they need to end up, that gives us some idea of the sorts of things that might happen in the middle. It makes it easier for us to go through and flesh out things like the go section here, where the characters are now armed with the knowledge of the artifact and have to make their own plans, follow their first leads. The search where things start kind of going to hell on them, and the world around the characters reacts and attempts to maintain the status quo, meaning keeping them from getting the artifact. That's just where they start facing more challenges and trials and things, and the road gets more difficult and that sort of thing. So instead of working through this linearly and kind of coming up with arbitrary leads and challenges, why don't we jump to the part where the characters find this artifact and start fleshing that out so that we have a clearer idea of where they're going to go. So let's do what we've always been doing for this, and let's create a brainstorming page. And this is what? Find brainstorming. And let's take a little bit of time to sculpt this out a touch. Let's say, okay, so this is the part of the story, the adventure, where the characters find the artifact. That begs a couple obvious questions. Primarily, what is the artifact? How do they use the artifact? Where is the artifact? How do they find the artifact? We already kind of know the, why is it important. The when they find the artifact is really kind of up to the players here, but the what, the what, the who, the why, the when, where, that kind of deal. Those are all good things to kind of answer. Some of them answer themselves though. So we've got a couple questions, and we may have some more that we might want to ponder kind of as we work through this brainstorming process. And since we've got some of these, we can start to kind of work on these. Let's build some of this out. Let's say the artifact's use. Let's start with that, because I have some thoughts for this. I think that the artifact itself is not inherently useful alone. I think it's a thing that is part of a larger ritual that has to be completed somewhere else. And in my mind, that happens within the central spire that is in the center of this. Well, central spire in the center, that's kind of redundant, but is in the center of this inland sea. I imagine that there is some sort of arcane engine there that this is an integral part of, and then when the two are brought together, a ritual can be performed, which enacts this epic fairy tale level magic that that occurs and gives the characters this power of choice, to effectively open the gates and escape, or collapse everything and prevent this evil from getting out into the world. So, how they use the artifact, I think, is just part of it's one piece of a larger, it's one cog of a larger machine, and it's and therefore part of a ritual itself. So let's work on that. Let's say the artifact is one cog of a larger arcane engine that is housed within the central spire the central spire that juts from the inland sea. Sea itself probably needs a name, but we can come up with that kind of stuff later. Oh, just like we're going to probably need a world map at some point. We can, take some time and build that out after we've kind of got a better idea of what the pieces of that world are. But that's a problem for another day. I should say that's a puzzle. It's not really a problem. It's a puzzle for another day. It's a challenge for another day, another creative challenge for another day. For the inland sea. Okay, so the artifact. When the two are brought together, they can be used. Let's see. So when the two are brought together, a ritual can activate them, giving the wielder god-like power over the domain. So there's also a sneaky third option with this potentially, and that's that the characters decide to not to open or close the domain of dread, but decide to become the ruler of it themselves. They can decide to become the villain. Why not have a villain arc? Give them the option for that. That could be a cool thing to do. And a cool ending to the story where instead of, leaving the heroes, either the self-sacrificing heroes or kind of being neutral and opening things up and letting the world kind of shake out as it is, maybe they decide to keep it all for themselves and become the hopefully benevolent overlords of this domain of dread and rule it as their own kingdom. Um, let's see here. Okay, so we got an idea about how it's kind of used, and so that means that gives us some more questions. So, um, how does the ritual work? Um, are there other missing pieces? Stuff like that. But those are things that we can kind of come up with later as needed. Let's keep focusing on the artifact itself. So, what is the artifact? What is it physically? That's something worth kind of considering here as we are building this out. What is its um, yeah, what does it look like? What is it how does it appear to the characters? Is it like the Tesseract, where it's kind of like the engine, the power source for this thing? Um, is it more of an actual physical cog, something that is kind of inert until it's put into the engine itself? It has no inherent power on its own. Um, what do we think it should be? And feel free if you're watching along in real time, or if you're watching the recording of this and you've got your own thoughts on this, to jump in the comments, toss in your thoughts on what the artifact should physically look like. Um, you know, I kind of sort of lean towards something akin to the Tesseract, right? Where maybe this is the power source, and it has some of its own abilities just inherent to itself, which means that it kind of could give the players a little bit of boon for retrieving it initially, and it's not just a huzzah, you found the MacGuffin. Now they actually have something they might be able to use. Um, and plus, then you can kind of make it glowy and steampunky and cool, and that could be a lot of fun, right? It's supposed to just being like, oh, we found a sprocket that's in the mud, and now now we got to clean it off, and now we got this sprocket. No, no, let's give them something cooler than that, right? Let's give them something that whirs and glows. So let's say that it is. The artifact is a power source that fuels the machinery of the Spire's arcane engine. It glows with. Ooh, what kind of light should it glow with? Blue comes to mind because we've got a lot of sea themes on this, but we could go with green. It could be a seafoam green kind of glow. Blue seems a little overdone sometimes. Purple's my favorite color, but I don't know that it necessarily fits with this. We could go something like orange or yellow. Um, maybe orange, since we're gonna have a lot of blues and greens kind of thematically, because this is kind of there's a lot of sea motifs and water motifs in this. Maybe we go with a complementary color. Okay, let's do orange. Let's see here. Glows with a let's see here, with a fiery orange light that puts out no heat. Let's see here. We could say that it is, maybe it's maybe it's a small ball of energy that is contained within this sort of, we could say, engineered structure. Um, let's see here. So it puts out no heat. It's here visually. It is a slowly rotating ball of pure power contained within a cylindrical container, contained within a cylindrical container. Let's see here. Made of, maybe, let's see here. Cylindrical cage, let's say, instead of container, cylindrical cage made of mithril and glass, let's say. We'll say mithril and crystal, polished crystal glass. All right. Yeah, so we're kind of starting to take visually, shape in our mind, and we can say that it's etched in runes and jazz it up a little bit here, but at its core, it's you know, it's in effect kind of a battery, right? It powers this arcane engine that will uh, eventually give the characters their dilemma that they've got to face. They've got to make the decision on. We might even say that since it's a power source and it has kind of its own dynamic stuff to it, maybe there's some magical properties that can be accessed uh, by anyone who is attuned to it. Um, Perhaps it offers a benefit, like, since it's pure magical energy at the core of this thing, right? Like you know, it's it's this ball of, in my mind, it is this ball of just pure raw weave energy, kind of twisting and turning and reshaping and moving dynamically in there. And it may not even stay a sphere the whole time. It might be more of a non-Newtonian kind of shape that kind of flexes and bubbles and what has you, but what have you. But but in my mind, it's pure energy from the weave, right? And so, what if, if you attuned to this object, that once a day you could recharge some of your own spell casting power with it? What if it gave you that ability that functions sort of like the arcane recovery kind of ability that a wizard gets? While you're attuned to this, you can recover a certain number of spell slots. Um, Once per day after a short rest. Effectively, you spend time communing with this thing, um, and knowing full well that it's kind of going to get passed around a group of variety spellcasters with people, attuning and breaking their attunement and so on to it here. But by blinking it to a short rest, it takes a little bit of time to do that. So it's not just like everybody's in combat and like, everybody touch the artifact so we can get our spells back. Huzzah! But it has that sort of raw power kind of coming off of it there that you could manipulate and access, so that it's a big, big boon for our characters kind of halfway through the adventure, knowing that it's going to be even bigger. Um, yeah, let's put that down. Let's say the artifact has some magical properties all on its own. Anyone attuned to it can spend a short rest um, in contact with the artifact. I can spend a short rest in contact with the artifact and recover some of their expended spell slots. Maybe a random number such as we could say spell levels equal to the total of 1d4 plus 3. So anywhere from 4 to 3 levels worth of spell slots can be recovered once per day. We could do something like that, or maybe plus 2. 1d4 plus 2. 3 to 6 levels of spell slots. I think that's pretty good. For once per day, I think that's not bad at all. That's a kind of a good idea. I think that's a nice balanced bit. We play with that. Maybe it grows in power if it's underpowered as we play. Maybe it diminishes some of the power as we play if it's a little overpowered. We can find out. But cool. So we got an idea for what the artifact itself is kind of like, and how the artifact is used. Now let's think about where the artifact actually is, and this is going to become kind of the crux of this adventure, and it's one of the most important pieces, I think, for us to fully understand. And that's that it, if we know where it is, and we know where we've started, then that means that we have got the information we need to start laying out kind of the clues and the places that our characters are likely to head to during the go and search portions of this campaign building structure. When they actually develop their plan and start following leads, we can start fleshing out some of those leads as we see fit, if we know where the artifact is. So let's think about what kind of adventure site do we want for this artifact? Where do we want it to be housed? Where do we want it to be found? I like the idea of it being in a sunken undersea sort of I'm going to say a dungeon complex, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like a long lost, maybe university or the ruins of a citadel or a keep or something along those lines, but down at the bottom of the ocean. Something that's kind of I don't want to call it a mega dungeon. I don't think it needs to be that big, but something that's got some size to it. That's got some, a lot of flooded spaces that's difficult to reach, because then that could be one of the things that our characters figure out they need to go and pursue and find, is the means to breathe underwater continuously, and so that they can explore this, and then we can have a kind of haunted with these underwater creatures and what have you. So let's start working on this. Let's see. So where is the artifact? The artifact was lost to history and currently dwells at the bottom of the inland sea within the ruins of a what? What should we say it should be? Should it be something like a Candlekeep-esque sort of structure where it's kind of half monastery, half library, fortified bastion of knowledge, with the ruins of a let's see here, with the ruins of a cloistered order of mages, let's say. Can make it kind of extra magical. We can have lots of things that have moved in since then, but that could be the original structure that was destroyed and flooded during the cataclysm that formed this domain of dread. Okay. I kind of like that it being, it was the place where it was maybe housed. Maybe that's where it was kept. It hasn't been moved per se. It's just been the knowledge of that place has been kind of mostly lost. I like the idea of that because it immediately gives me a couple leads on on the sorts of things we need to kind of lay out for our characters as they go and explore and they start searching for this. One, they need to discover the existence of this place. Two, they need to discover how to get there, how to find it. And three, they need to discover a means to actually go about exploring it, i.e., dealing with being underwater. And let's be honest, how many times in D&D have you played an adventure that was, almost all underwater combat, right? It's kind of cool. It doesn't happen very often, so it gives us a fun flavor to this. That makes for a unique environment, makes for a unique idea for sort of how this adventure is going to unfold. So we don't necessarily need to map this out yet, unless we wanted to start building this adventure outright. But we should probably capture some of the leads that suggests. Leads. We can say party must learn of cloister, we'll say of ruins existence. Must learn that the artifact is housed there. Must learn where the ruin is. And must find the means to explore a completely flooded dungeon. Example, how to breathe underwater. Cool. So that gives us some stuff that we can work on, or we can work with now as we go to build out some of the other sections. And that kind of gets to some of the how do they find the artifact. That's kind of a loose question here, and it's very linked as to where. So let's think about some of the. Let's think about some of these leads. Let's roll those around in our head right now, because I'm debating as to whether or not I want to jump right in and start kind of fleshing out some more detail about this place, or whether I want to keep it as kind of a loose thing in my head at the moment and focus more on how the party kind of gets here. But maybe we brainstorm some of these leads and think about some of the ways that they might work within the adventure. And give ourselves a little more scaffolding, and then we can figure out where to go from here. Yeah, let's see. So the party must learn of the ruin's existence. They must learn the artifact was housed there. They must learn where the ruin is. Must find the means to explore a completely flooded dungeon. Okay, so So these are all practical things that they need, but this is, in all likelihood, these are um, physical, magical items. You know, rings of water breathing, or the like. Stuff like that. This is something that they're actually gonna physically need to get. This is knowledge. This is also knowledge. And this is, I think, it's still technically knowledge, but I think we're going to call it exploration in this, because yes, they need to learn about it, but it can be something that they kind of come across, that they discover as they're poking around. Because if they can just go somewhere and somebody goes, "Oh yeah, I know where that thing is," then why hasn't anybody else found it before? Why has that information been so guarded? And I'm sure we can come up with reasons for that, but I think it's much better if it's something that they have to go explore the bottom of this inland sea and begin poking around and find their own clues that lead them in the direction of this place. Um, and this might be, in gaining the knowledge of this existence ruins, might be a multi-part endeavor, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a one thing. It's not necessarily again, it's not necessarily a, oh yeah, it's common knowledge. One person, one guy, one sage somewhere, like, oh yeah, I know, it was located in the ruins of the old cloistered monastery. I again, why hasn't that information gotten out if that's the case? Maybe they have to find different pieces that sort of lead them to kind of narrow down the sort of place that it could be, and then they have to go exploring to find that spot. Um, so in many ways, we kind of have a puzzle structure now here, or a mystery structure now here, that we can start to kind of work with, and that gives us an actionable thing to start designing, and that means coming up with clues and leads if we want to do this. So we're going to say knowledge, and we're going to say that this is a mystery to be uncovered by the characters through their investigations. So by using this sort of mystery structure that we'll flesh out as we kind of go back to the go and search bits there, that gives us something to work with. That gives us something tangible to kind of build off of. Very cool. All right. Well, let's see. How about, let's see here. What else? Just learn the artifact is housed there. That's probably part of this mystery here as well. Let's see here. Part of the mystery slash investigation. And we can use the five node mystery structure for this kind of thing. In fact, if we kind of, one of the cool things about the five node mystery structure, and if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend checking out so you want to be a game master. And because Justin Alexander does a great discussion of it in there, and he's does a better job of explaining it than I'm going to be able to do here in sort of this brief overview that I'm going to give here real quick. And that's just that effectively, the five node structure is a fractal kind of structure, meaning that we can zoom in and you can use it to make a singular adventure where we've got a starting point, and then that leads out to three different clues. And those take us to three different areas, and those areas have their own clues that lead to each other and then also lead to the solution, which is our fifth node. And so we have a starting node that's one, three kind of lead nodes, and then one solution node where we have this, effectively this simple structure. And we can use that to create a single adventure, but we can also sort of zoom out and make each of those nodes an adventure in and of themselves. And so the characters are finding clues as they work through these sort of larger, grander adventures. Um, and so those become rewards in and of themselves, right? They're finding pieces of this puzzle, information they need, and it becomes, I find at least personally, and I'm gonna go back to a talking head here for a minute because I'm gonna expound upon this point for a second. Um, so I find personally that when the reward for something like this is information, it's more satisfying than when it's just here's a piece of the MacGuffin that you're searching for. If you're just sending them on fetch quests where it's like we need 52 pieces of, you know, of uranium to build our whatever, that they're fetching the same thing over and over again, and they're just finding chunks and cogs and different pieces to create this thing. I don't find it as satisfying as when it's they're learning something new. They get a new piece of information that now tells them or makes a part of this puzzle a little bit clearer. And so gets them a little more excited because now they've got new ideas for new leads and where they might go next. Um, and so I think if we use that 5 node structure here and we uh, uh, get back to focusing, have our clues be our knowledge base here, and focus in on um, I'm losing my train of thought here. Have our clues be these pieces of knowledge, these important pieces of knowledge, and focus in on uh, each one of them kind of moving the story forward a little bit here, the adventure forward a little bit. I think that's going to be um, a really rewarding and engaging part of this adventure, and it's going to make the players feel like they've got a lot of agency. I think, and it's going to make it easier for us to write because we don't have to write how they get to point A to point B. We can just create the points where this information is held, and let the characters figure out how to get there on their own. So, really will enhance agency. It'll make it easier for us to write, and it gives us a really nice, clean framework with which to work. So, with that in mind, I think we're going to make a little note here. We're going to say start of 5-node mystery structure. Okay, and we'll save that bad boy. And then we're going to go to search, and we're going to make another note here, and we're going to say, let's see here, lead nodes of 5-node mystery structure. We're going to leave a little note for ourselves there so we kind of have an idea of what we're working with as we plug forward. So very cool. All right, so we've got a lot sort of done here in our little session here, and I think we're going to go ahead, and this is a good place to stop. And since we've been working on this for about 45 minutes or so, we've taken this thing that was a nebulous item, our artifact that started as sort of just a general MacGuffin, and we've given it some in-game significance. We've given it some actual powers that make it a cool thing for the party to find and recover at a certain point in the adventure. We've made it part of a larger picture, and we've used that to develop the structure that we're going to use to flesh out the preceding sections of the adventure. So it's actually quite a lot to accomplish in 45 minutes. I think we've given ourselves a lot of tools to work with as we go on from here. So I just want to say thank you for watching with me today. If you've enjoyed this, please go ahead and give the video a like, subscribe, leave a comment. All that stuff helps the channel and helps encourage me to do this more often. I do this every Monday. I will say that that's excepting this coming Monday, as I will be offline. I am going to be completely disconnected, so won't be here to stream. But we'll pick up again on February 3rd at our usual time, and that's going to be 6 p.m. Central if you're watching in the United States. And we'll carry on from there, probably working on some of our mystery structure here now that we've kind of got that idea in place and we've got some stuff to work with. Um, I also do a live stream on Wednesdays where it's more of a chattier sort of let's talk about TTRPG topics in general. Um, been doing that again every Wednesday, and so our next one on that is going to be on the 22nd. So this coming Wednesday, if you're watching this in real time, January 22nd. So come check that out. If you've got ideas or things that you want to chat about during that session, let me know. Shoot me a note or jump in the comments and let me know. I'm always looking for ideas for that, and I would love to have conversations with you about the things that you want to chat about. So anyway, thanks again, and I hope to see you on Wednesday. And if not, I'll see you again on Monday. Well, on the 3rd. Bye.